Hey, how are you doing? This is Mr. Mason. I am coming to you today with a video on the parenting class that is offered through Scott County's Against Drugs and also the group called ASAP. And we just want to give you this basic information. I know for some of you, your work schedules or if there might be conflicts with being able to meet with us. We meet on Saturdays from 1 to 3 p.m. At Wesley United Methodist Church. It's 127 North Mulberry Street. And if you come here, you will pull to the side and you will see there is a white part of the building. There's a door located there. And so we will be meeting in the basement. But for some of us, we cannot be here, or for others of us, there are conflicts. And so we want to put a few lessons out there for you to be able to look and to listen to and to get information that we're going to talk about. And so we're going to talk about today, this is parenting session number 1. And so the first thing I want to talk to you about is this question. Everybody wants to be a good parent. You see that good is in quotations. But my question to you is, what makes a good parent? And if we could go into explanation, many times we have been taught from our parents, or we have been taught from other individuals what a good parent is. I can tell you in the past, I've had individuals tell me that a good parent is someone who has a job, who has a house to live into, and the kids have plenty of clothes and plenty of food. And I agree with those things. Those are part of what it means to be a good parent, but I believe to be a good parent is even deeper than that because our kids don't only have what we call physiological needs, which is food, shelter, and clothing, but they also have emotional needs, they also have mental needs. And so we're going to talk a little bit about today what it means to be a good parent. And you see in the corner, we have this right relationships with parents. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to understand that our children will only be as strong as we are. Our children will only be as smart as we are. Our children will only be well adjusted to the environment that they live in as we are. And so it becomes critical or very important that we learn how to be good parents. So the first thing that I want to talk to you is basic rules for parenting. Number 1, bullet 1 says, parenting for each person and each child is different. The way that I parent my 3 children is not the way you're going to parent your 3 children. And so we must understand that, because many times when we are trying to become better parents, we will go watch somebody else do something, or we will do it like mom and dad did it, and then we find out that what we're doing just is not working. So you got to understand bullet number 1, parent for each person and each child is different. Bullet 2, what works for one child might not work for another. I have 3 children, and they are different than night and day. I have my oldest 2 are boys, and then my youngest is a girl, and so they're totally different. One is an introvert, one is an extrovert. One can turn it on and off. She can be introvert, she's just as fine being in her room playing with her dolls, or she's just as happy as being out playing on a volleyball court or playing or doing track. And so she has the ability to move between each of those groups. And so each child is different, and we need to understand that. And then so even though children are different, and even though parents are different, there are basic parent strategies. There are basic rules for parenting children. And those are some of the things that we want to talk about in this class, are what are some of the basic rules that apply to any child and can be used by any parent. First of all, if you're going to be a good parent, rule number 1 is you have to be realistic. And what I mean by that is that many parents set too low or high goals for themselves. And so you have to come to the realization of what is my ability. You must assess yourself and say, how good of a parent am I, and where am I in my life? If you're trying to make your children be geniuses, that might be too high of a goal. Or if you don't care about your children's education, that might be too low of a goal. And so what you have to do is you have to be willing to set realistic goals for yourself. What does it mean? By the time my child leaves my house, what do I want to happen for them? And let it be realistic. Let it be something that they can obtain, and let it be something that you can help them attain, because sometimes when our goals are too high, we fail and we give up. And sometimes when they're too low, we meet them and then we don't move forward. And so our goals should be realistic. Number 2, being a good parent is good enough. No one is perfect. So if you are a good parent and your children, you ask your children, are you a good parent? And they state to you, yes, you're a good parent, then be okay with that. Some of us are trying to be perfect, and guess what? Nobody's perfect. There is no way for us to attain, because guess what will happen to us as we try to reach perfect? Then we will never be happy, and the people around us will never be happy. So rule number one, parenting rule number one is be realistic. Number two, be the best role model you can be. The greatest parenting tool you have is modeling. And so what I'm talking about here is, as you set the standard for your parenting rules, is to be the best role model. Your children will do what they see you do. Your children will talk the way that they hear you talk. And so what we have to learn how to do is we have to learn how to make sure that we are the best role model for our children. And the way that we do that is by modeling. And I'm not talking about getting on a catwalk. I'm not talking about trying on a bunch of different outfits. But what I am talking about in modeling is our children watch our behaviors. Our children listen to our language. And that will determine what they will do. So whatever you want your child to be, guess what? You have to be it first. And so that's a challenge that we have in being the best role model. B says, your child watches you every second. They are with you. The question is, what do they see? Are they seeing a parent that is in control? Are they seeing a parent that has goals set for themselves? Are they seeing a parent that wants better for them and for the people around them? Or are they seeing someone who is caught in drug addiction? Are they seeing someone who is struggling day to day? What are they seeing? Because what they see in you many times will be what they do for themselves. And so the challenge is, if you want it, then you got to be willing to produce it for them. And then C says, they will do as you do, so be the best you can be. And it's true. I have mannerisms of my mother who raised me. My children have mannerisms of me. Many times I had to laugh that I will ask one of my children to go get the other child, and the other child will be stubborn and not want to respond. And so what they'll do is they'll try to deepen their voice like mine and say one of my children's name. And they mimic, because they think that the power is in the sound of the voice when the power is in the position. And so right now your children are a replica of you. They look like you, they talk like you, and they're going to act like you. What are they seeing in you? And so number two, be the best role model that you can be. Number three, talk with your children and not at them. And here's what I mean by that. Many times when we are dealing with our children, we talk at them. Do this, go here, be that, instead of talking with them. One of the most encouraging things that can ever happen to you as a parent is to just take enough time to not think that you know what your child is doing, but to ask, what are you doing? What are your goals? What are your aspirations? What do you want to be? And so let's look at this. A says, when your child is being talked to, they, number one, bullet numb, they dislike it, which causes them to shut down. And so when you are talking at your child, the first thing that happens to them is they're just like Charlie Brown's teacher. Those of us that have seen the Charlie Brown cartoon, when Charlie Brown and the other students, the peanut gangs, are sitting in the classroom, all you hear is womp, 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 womp. That's what happens when we talk at our children. They mentally shut down. Their body is there, their eyes are turned on, but their brain is not listening to us. The next thing that it does is they mentally exit the interaction. That's sort of what I was talking about. They're just like the person, they leave the conversation. You're sitting there telling them what you want, and they never hear it because you are talking at them. So the next thing with talking with your children and not at them is, how should I talk with my children? Bullet number one is hold a calm conversation, which means this. If you find yourself that you're upset, if you find that your child is getting on your last nerve, if you find that your child has got you to a level where you're upset, then you're not going to probably be able to have a calm conversation. So maybe you need to put that conversation on hold until you are able to get along by yourself and make sure that you get all that mean conversation, all that fussing out of you, so that you can have a calm conversation. The second part of the bullet two is invite them for their input. So if I'm going to talk with my child, not only am I going to have a calm conversation, but I'm going to invite them, so I'm going to periodically ask questions. What do you think? How do you feel about that? Does this make sense to you? What I'm doing is calling, clarifying, and validating to make sure that they are having input, because when a person feels that their input matters, they will feel or they will be more involved in the conversation. Bullet number 3, show respect for their opinion and solutions. Guess what? Your children are not as sophisticated as you are. Your children might not be as smart as you are. And so guess what? They are going to see things differently than what you see. And one of the worst things that can happen to us is to decide and determine that our children don't make sense. And we just say, listen, this is what I want you to do. And so you're going to respect their opinions. You might not agree with that. Understand that. You don't have to agree with it, but don't be disagreeable in your not agreeing with it. And then allow them to make solutions. Sometimes children know about what to do. They just need a little bit more maturity, and that's where we come in. They know what to do. They know that when they spill the milk, that it needs to be cleaned up. And so you give them the opportunity to work their solution, but as a parent, you stand there to help them to get the finer truths out of what needs to be done. And then bullet 4 says, then you make the final decision as an informed parent. I am not saying that when we talk with our children, that we should not be the one that's in control. Yes, you need to be in control. You are the parent for a reason. But when you allow your child to input, and you allow them to give solutions, and you allow them to be able to share with you in a calm environment, then it helps you to make a better decision. There's an old saying that 2 heads are better than one, which basically means this. When you are working with your child will give you clues and hints and help for them, for you to be a successful parent. And so that's the reason that we need to talk with our children and not at them. The next one is number 4. Give your love openly. One of the things that is most important, if you hear nothing else in this video, is you got to be willing to give your love openly. And what do I mean by that? Well, the first thing it should be, A says, children should never have to earn your love. There's nothing that you really can do, your children could ever do to earn your love. It should be something that we give to them because they are our children, that they have a part and they have a spot in our heart. And so we say to them, no matter what you do, I'm always going to love you. Whether you are successful or whether you are a failure, whether you do well or you don't do well, that they're loved, and they ought to be able to feel your love. There is a writer who said this, love not in words nor in tongue, but in deed and in action. And what that means is, if you want me to know that you love me, you got to show that. If you want your children to know that you love them, just don't tell them you love them, show them that you love them. And so let's look at this. A says, the more the child feels loved by the parent, the more they will listen to and learn. And so one of the things that they have to do before they will listen and before they will learn from you is this. They got to feel love. Do you love me? Do you see me as a genuine person? Do you respect me even when I fail? Are you there with me to love me through the process? And once you feel love, then what you will find out is that they will listen and they will learn from you. And then bullet 2 says, love should be shown through touch and talk. One of the things that we need to make sure that we're doing is that when we love our children, we ought to give them not only the talk of love, and we need to say that. We need to make sure that our children are being inundated with them hearing, I love you, I love you, I love you. In fact, they should hear I love you so much that they say, Mom, Dad, you're getting on my nerves with that. They can never hear that they love you too much. But then also their love ought to be into the way that touch, the way that we interact with them. If the only time that we interact with our children through touch is when we are disciplining them, then they won't feel loved. And so there's a ways of doing that. One of the things that you will hear later on in these classes is that I will challenge you to give your child at least 4 hugs a day. And guess what happens with that? When your child gets 4 hugs a day, guess who else gets 4 hugs a day? You do. Give your child 4 hugs a day. They got to know one of the things that they do when a baby is born with the mother is once the baby is birthed, before they clean the baby up, and before they put the little baby oil and all that stuff on them, is they will cut the umbilical cord and then they will hand the baby to the mother for the mother to lay the baby up on her chest. Why is that? It's because the baby is used to the touch that was going on inside of the womb, that they need to make sure that and it's the same thing no matter how old your child is. they need to have those touches of love. They need to feel your presence. They need to see you holding them. They need to, when they're struggling, they need you to come to them with arms of comfort. When they are excited, you need to come to them with arms of joy. So let's make sure that as we show love openly, that we not only talk it, but we also make sure that we're giving positive touches. Number 5, keep your promises. One of the things that's going to help you to be a good parent, if you said that you're going to do it, you got to do it. Because our children will either know us as the truth, or they will know us as liars. And one of the ways that happens is when we are not willing to keep or to follow through with the things that we've said. So let's look at this. A says, your words to your child are the truth until you alter them. So whatever comes out of your mouth as a parent, it's the truth. One of my favorite movies is The Waterboy. And you know, in The Waterboy, when Bobby Boucher ends up going to college, that one of his teachers asked him, why are gators mean, ornery critters? And Bobby Boucher says, my mama said it's because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush. Well, we know that's not the answer. But guess what? It was the truth for Bobby Boucher. Why? It's because mama said it. And the same way for Bobby Boucher, even though that was a movie, is the same way for our children. Our words are true until we prove that they're not. And so we must be careful that when we promise our children something, when we say something to our children, that we follow through with it. B says, don't make promises you may not be able to keep. Sometimes it is better to try without telling than to tell and not be able to do it. And so what I mean by that is, if you know that your schedule is sort of hectic, but your child is wanting something special, then maybe don't tell them that you're going to do it, but try to do it anyway. Because one of the worst things that can happen is for you to tell your child that, hey, yes, I will be at your award ceremony, and then your job doesn't let you go there, then your child is heartbroken because you told them, you gave them a promise, and you did not follow through with it. C says, if you break a promise, apologize and make it up to them. If you break a promise, and it will happen. I would like to tell you, standing here before you, that I've never broken a promise to my children or to any other people. It has happened. I broke promises at times. Didn't want to, didn't mean to, but it happened. So the first thing you got to do is, number 1, you got to be willing to apologize. You got to be willing to say, I'm sorry. Well, what does I'm sorry mean? I'm sorry says you are so valuable to me and I love you so much that I made a mistake. I didn't follow through with what I wanted to do, and so I apologize to you. And then you make it up to them. If it's something that you can redo with them another day, then redo it with them another day. If it's not something, say like they have an award ceremony at the end of the school year and you miss it, then have a celebration after that. Okay, this was a celebration that the school did. Now let us celebrate because I am proud of you and I honor your award that you received. And so let's make sure that we keep our promises. So here's your homework. Here's your homework assignment. Keep calm and do your homework. Number 1, look at the 5 rules of parenting and take one of the rules. So those 5 things that I just went over with you, you're going to take one of those and you're going to answer these questions. Number 1, how will you implement the rule into your parenting? So how will I take that principle? How will I take that, whether it's being realistic, whether it's keeping my promises, whether it's talking with my children and not at my children? I'm going to take this one thing and I'm going to implement it into my parenting. What will that look like? How will that happen? How will I go about that? And so what I want you to do is that I want you that if you will respond to me, that you will send the information to me answering these questions. Number 2, why do you think you need to implement this rule? Why is that? Maybe it's something that you used to do but that you don't do anymore. Maybe it's something that you realize that if you did it, you would be a lot stronger. Maybe it's something you didn't know and you figured, hey, I've tried other things, why not try this? So I want to know, number 2 is, why do you think you need to implement? And then number 3, what value will this implementation bring? So what I want you to do is, after you implemented it for a while, I want you to think about what will being realistic as a parent, what will that do for me? What will that do for my relationship with my child? And then how will me implement me? How will me go about doing this? How will it bring value to me as a parent? And so I want you to talk about that. And as you go through these questions, be mindful of it's going to be difficult to implement something that we have never done before or something that we have not done for a while. And so I want you to write this not only to me, but to write it to yourself and say, the parenting principle that I am going to use, or the parenting rule that I'm going to focus on is this. Be realistic. Let's say it's be realistic. And then start writing ways that you're going to be realistic. Start talking about too high of a standard, too low of a standard. And listen, if you need help with that, let me know. If you will say, hey, I want to be realistic, here's my realistic standard of what parenting is. We can talk about that, and I can try to help you to either raise it or to lower it or just keep it right where it is, because I want you to be a realistic parent. Or if it's talking with your children, I know it gets difficult because sometimes children want to talk and not want to listen, but there are tips that we will give you later on as we teach these lessons that will help you to be able to do that. But be one who says, you know what, I am going to listen. There's an old saying that my friend used to say all the time, and I agree with it. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a good reason, so that you will listen more than you talk. And so those are the questions. Number 1, how will you implement the rule into your parenting? Number 2, why do you think you need to implement this rule? And number 3, what value will this implementation bring to you? And so that's today's lesson. I'm Mr. Mason. Thank you very much for giving me this time with you. This is a way for us to be able to disseminate the information out to you so that you will be able to be the successful parent that we hope that you will be able to be. If you have any questions, you can just follow me on this page, this YouTube page, and you can send your information to me. I have an email that I will place on there. You can also contact me through email and to be able to answer these questions. So have a good day. I'll see you for session number 2. Have a good one.